Hello and welcome to this short video walkthrough of the installation process and sequence for the IDF to PH toolkit. My name is Ed May with Building Type, and I'm going to just walk you through the installation steps here and show you where you can download all the files for the IDF to PH toolkit. So let's get started. If you haven't already, the place where you want to download all the files for the IDF to PH toolkit is just going to be www.idf2ph.com. And if you go to the website there, you'll notice that there's a couple of different places, places to download things here. So first of all, most folks are going to be able to just follow this download link right here. So there's a link to a download page, which will let you download all the useful files or all the important files for the IDF to PH toolkit. Just briefly, if anyone is interested, or for those that are interested, there is a GitHub repository with all of the latest files and versions of everything for the IDF to PH toolkit. Some of those might still be in development, though. So for most folks, it's probably going to be better to just go ahead and use the basic download link here on the web page. So if you click this download button, it'll take you to a short download descriptions web page, which will include some links to all of the various download files. So we'll walk through this one step at a time, and I'll show the installation sequence here on my computer just to make sure that it's obvious for everybody. But the download sequence and installation process for the IDF to PH toolkit is essentially just three pieces. You're going to download and install the new Rhino side tools. You're going to download and install the new Grasshopper tools. And then we just have to do one little bit of setup to allow the Rhino and Grasshopper to talk to your Excel, your Microsoft Excel application. So let's start with the first of those. Let's start with downloading and installing the Rhino side tools. So to download, all you have to do is click this button here. That'll download your IDF to PH Rhino side tools. So if I press on my Chrome browser here, if I press that button, let me delete these. If I press that button, what you'll see is that we just get a folder here that's downloaded. And you see this the date stamp on here, August 17th, 2020. So these will be updated, and yours that you're downloading today might have a slightly different timestamp on there. But this video is in August 2020. In any event, there's a couple of different things in here. So there's something called Rhino Toolbar, and there's something called PHP export, and then this big ugly name right here. What we have to do with that is we have to copy that over to the Rhino application site. So if we follow the instructions here on our web page, it says once we first unzip the download file, we'll get that Rhino toolbar and then PHP and some mess. And what we need to do is we need to copy that over to the Rhino application site. Now, I don't know where Rhino's installed on your computer, so obviously I can't tell you exactly where that is. On my computer, it's C username, app data, roaming, McNeil, which is the company that makes Rhino 6 is the version I'm working in, plugins, and then there's something called Python plugins in there. We'll see that in a second. So let me take a look at that. Let me navigate to that. Let me bring up my file browser here. Just to be clear, I'm on a Mac, but I'm using Parallels with Coherence, which is why it sort of looks like I'm running both a Mac and a window, and it's the Windows OS, and that's kind of because I am. So in any event, though, pretend this is a PC. I'm going to go to C. I'll go to users. I'll go to my username, and I'll go to app data. And one thing about app data, notice it's kind of grayed out. It's one of those, I don't know what they call them in Windows, hidden files or hidden folders, something like that. So you just have to make sure that that's visible so you can get to your app data there. So go to app data, roaming, and then we're going to go down here to find McNeil, Rhinoceros. You see I've got both 5 and 6 installed, so we've got 6. And then once we're into Rhino 6, so wherever this is on your computer, this is where it is on my computer, I don't know where it is on yours, wherever you installed Rhino, but try here first. This is the default install location. We want to go into the plugins directory. So if I go into plugins, you'll see all sorts of stuff in here. And they all have kind of a name and then this big ugly string, and that's fine. The one that we're interested in is the one called Python plugins. So IDF2PH is in Toolkit entirely written in Python. It's all Python code. And so we're going to drop it here into the Python plugins directory. Now, you probably already have this Python plugins directory in your Rhino setup. If you don't, just make a new folder. So just, new folder and give it the name Python plugins, all one word with an S at the end. So I'll go into Python plugins, and then all I have to do is just copy this ugly folder that I downloaded from the web page over into that directory. I'm not going to do that because I've already got it installed here, and I don't want to overwrite it. So that's fine. That's all you have to do. Now you're done. Now, if you're interested, you can go in here and take a look at what you've got. There's a bunch of Python code and some other stuff in there. That's all fine. So we don't need to do anything with that right now. That'll come in later on. So let me close that out. So that part is done. Now, in order to get access to those new tools, so these are new Rhino side tools, in order to actually be able to use them, we have to do a little bit of setup in Rhino. So in Rhino, we actually have to just make a few settings. So if we scroll down a little bit, you'll notice that the next step here, step 3, is to import the new Rhino PHP toolbar. And that's this guy right here, this Rhino toolbar. Underscore PHP. So let me start up Rhino, and we'll do that from within Rhino. So we'll actually make these settings and configuration changes from within Rhino. So I'll just start a blank project here, and fine. So here's just a blank project, and I'm going to go to File and come down to Properties. So again, this is in Rhino. So I started a new Rhino file. So I'm using Rhino 6, and I'm going to go to File and Properties. I'll click Properties, and this will bring up my Properties, Document Properties window. So at the top here are properties and settings for this specific file, this specific document that I have open. But down below in the section labeled Rhino Options, these are global options and settings for the application. So every time I start up Rhino, these various settings will be set. The ones at the top, again, are for the document that's open. The bottom ones are for the sort of global Rhino application. And if we come down to the bottom, you'll notice there's one option labeled Toolbars. And so if I click on Toolbars, this is, if you're not familiar, this is where you control all of the toolbars or set up all the toolbars in your Rhino scene here. And all we need to do in order to get access to the various tools from the IDF2PH is just as we show here on the website, go to File and Import Toolbars. So File, Import Toolbars. And all you need to do is just navigate to wherever the directory is that you saved that toolbar. So wherever you saved this toolbar, here it's in my downloads folder, maybe you put it on your desktop, wherever you put it, just navigate to that location. So here let me move it to my desktop so it's a little bit easier for us to find. I'll just go to my desktop, Rhino toolbar PHP, and just say open. And just click open. And that should be it. It should be done. I'm not going to do that because I've already got it booted up on mine, but what will happen when you do that is you'll get a new toolbar, this guy here, labeled PHPP, the Past Files Planning Package, with a bunch of new tools. So a bunch of new tools will become available, and just like any other toolbar, you can close it, you can hide it, you can dock it, you can do whatever with it. It's a regular, typical Rhino toolbar, so you can do all the usual maneuvers with it. So now we have our new tools here, so that's great, and all we need to do to use them is just click on them. They're just typical Rhino buttons. They work just like everything else in Rhino. The one setting that you might have to set in your Rhino application, and I recommend it because you might have to, it's not going to hurt anything if you do set it, is down here, we list it under step 4. We need to set up Rhino to load those Python scripts by default. And it's very simple to do that. All we have to do is go back into our file, properties, and this time, instead of going to toolbars, we go to general, and you'll notice here that there's something called command lists. Run these commands every time Rhino starts, and all we want to do is type in this string right here, underscore, no echo, capitalization matters, I think, underscore, hyphen, or excuse me, space. So space, there's a space there, space underscore hyphen run Python script space underscore enter. So this is actually three distinct commands, or three distinct commands to the Rhino command line. You could also type it in right here, but we want to run this every time Rhino opens, and all this does is sort of initialize the plugins. And so every time you start Rhino, Rhino will know, oh hey, I should look at those Python plugins. So when somebody comes in and tries to run a Python plugin, it'll look in the plugins directory there. And that's it. Just say okay. You can also, just to make sure that you type it correctly, you can go ahead and download, you can copy it from the website right here. Do not include the, what do you call these apostrophes? These little, single apostrophe marks. So just the text, and just copy that in, say okay, and now you're done. And you only have to do that once. So you only do that one time. Rhino is now set up to use all of these various tools. And so now when I come in here and I draw a floor, I can select the floor and I can set it using my button there. And it might be a little bit slow the very first time that it runs. It sort of has to initialize, but then every time after that, it should boot right up very quickly. So you now have access to all of those Rhino side tools. Okay. The very last thing that we need to do, well, I shouldn't say, there's two more steps. So the next step that we need to do, step number 5, is we need to download and install all of the Grasshopper side components. So IDF2PH is made of 2 sets of tools. One of them works on the Rhino side, and one of them works in Grasshopper. So you can get those Grasshopper components just the same way. Just click the download button right here. It'll download to your system, and I'll open it up here. Let me delete these other files that I downloaded before just to make it really clear. So here's all of our Grasshopper components. Again, they have a date stamp, August 17th, 2020. Yours might be a little different if you're downloading this later. If we open this file up or folder up, notice what we have here are a whole bunch of GH user components, Grasshopper user components. These are all Python code, and we just need to load these once into our Grasshopper scene for them to become active. And there are a couple different ways to do it. I'll show the most explicit way. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Grasshopper here. So this will just take a second and load. So I'm just starting up a blank Grasshopper scene. So it's a blank Grasshopper canvas. I'm not going to do anything here. Instead, what I'm going to do is come up to File. I'm going to go to Special Folders, and I'm going to open up the User Object folder. Notice these are all GH User objects, and I'm going to open up this GH User Object folder, and that'll open up on my system. Now, I could have also opened up the file viewer and just navigated to users, my username, app data, roaming, Grasshopper, user objects. I always forget where this is, though, so it's easier to just access it through here. So this just opens it right up for you. All right, so it just finds it. And all you need to do for this to work is just select all of the GH user files. So not the folder, but all the files, and just copy them over into this location. So you're just going to copy them into that location. Now, I'm not going to do that because I've already got them all installed here, but all you would need to do is drop them in here and just drop them right alongside anything else. So if you have Ladybug, Honeybee, any other plugin installed in your user objects, that's totally fine. Just drop these in next to them. So drop them in right alongside them in this user objects folder. And as soon as you do that and you restart Grasshopper, you should now have a whole bunch of IDF2PH tools which become available to you. So you should have probably an O1 model and an O2 IDF2PH. And there'll be all sorts of individual components which will become useful to you. So you can start using these in your Grasshopper scene. There's one very last step. So let me close out of this, and I will close all this out. Say no. I'm going to close my, I'm going to close all that. Now there's one last step that you need to do. And we'll come down here. So we've successfully installed all of our Grasshopper components. There's one last step. And the last step is that you need to place a copy of the Microsoft Office Interop Excel DLL, so the library file with a bunch of commands for talking to Excel. We need to place that file in the Rhino 6 directory. And in fact, we need to place it in the Rhino 6 scripts directory. So we don't want to move this file. We just want to put a copy of this file in that scripts directory. So you probably have this file on your computer somewhere if you own Excel, and you'll have to own Excel for this IDF2PH toolkit to work. So you have to have Excel. So you've already got this somewhere on your computer. If you can't locate it, if you have trouble finding it, you can go ahead and just grab it here. So you can certainly grab this one, but you almost certainly already have this somewhere on your Windows OS system. So we need to take a copy of this and put it here in the your username, app data, roaming, McNeil, Rhino 6 scripts. So just to show that real quick, so if we grab that, so we've got this, it's just a DLL file there, and let me load my file viewer again. And again, this the specific location could be a little different for you. Again, I don't know where you installed Rhino, so on my computer, it's in C, users, my username, app data, roaming, McNeil, Rhino, and I'm working in Rhino 6, so Rhino 6, and there we go. And so we want to put this file into the scripts directory. So I'll go in here to scripts, and notice that I've already got a copy of this in here. So this already exists here. So, but if it didn't, you could just grab it and copy it over. As simple as that. Once that's here, you'll want to restart Rhino, restart Grasshopper, and as soon as all of that is in place, you should be up and running with the IDF2PH toolkit. So hopefully that all makes sense. I know that's quite a few steps to get things running, but the toolkit does sort of talk to all sorts of different pieces of your system. So hopefully that's not too onerous, or you don't have too much trouble with that. If you do have any trouble with that, certainly drop us a line, info@buildingtype.com, and if you're interested in the IDF2PH toolkit here, definitely check out the YouTube channel, check out the web page. There's going to be all sorts of other tutorials and introductory tutorials that show you how to utilize the various aspects of the IDF2PH toolkit. So I think we'll cut this off here, and I hope that was helpful. Hopefully that made sense. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to send us a note. Let us know if you're having trouble with the installation there. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good day.